We are live. Oh my God.
Hey!
Hey,
All right.
that's good. Hi, Brad. I
Hello,
I
hello.
realized you wear two hats. I don't wear a hat today. That means you are driving the session, and I just showed up. So what's
That
what's going
is,
on
I wanted to
today?
make sure the average number of hats between us was one. Also, in the spirit of this honk out, we're going to cover a lot of stuff. It's going to be front end, it's going to be back end, it's going to be agents, and also some one announcement. And so I felt like I needed to wear multiple hats. I realize it's kind of, maybe it's less distracting if I go like this. Um, but in the spirit of today's honk out, many hats.
I mean, that sounds good, and I'm happy that you all wear that. So, do you want to start? Maybe I feel we have the announcement, right? That's something that is coming.
Yeah,
Maybe that's something to start with. It's good to start
yeah.
something
It's
with announcing.
I think we're tweeting it out right now. Actually, could you put my screen on the thing so that it's sharing the screen? And then we're gonna have the infinite window.
100%.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Whoop. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted to go to. Val.town. Okay, if you have not heard of Valtown before, I need to keep this quick because we have so much other stuff to talk about. We might talk about Valtown again in the coming weeks. Um, but it's like it's like a micro app platform that you can build in TypeScript or JavaScript and then just do really fast apps that deploy in 100 milliseconds. So it's been extremely fun working with them because it creates this like instant feedback loop of writing code and seeing it live on the internet. We did something with them last week where we had some fiber plane starters for Hono apps on Valtown. And then last weekend, I think, I shelled out a Honc starter kit. So typically, a val is just like a single file. But they launched in January or early February projects, which can be like a repository of a bunch of files. And once they did that, I was like, okay, we can put Honc on Valtown. So if you fork this, you'll have a Honc app live in 100 milliseconds on the internet, and you can go about modifying it, do whatever you want. It already has a database connection. It's a little hacky how you set up your database here. So it's not your typical like generate and apply migrations. Need to figure out how to do that. But they have a SQLite on Valtown that you just can plug into instantly. So you'll see a lot of that in DB, but this is a Honc app. It uses Drizzle, Hono,
Nice.
and the database is just Valtown SQLite, and then it's deployed like instantly on SQLite. It's crazy. So like if I wanted to, where's a good example? Oh, now I'm making this a larger demo than I anticipated. But
I mean, it's a cool
welcome to
tool,
my.
right?
It's so fun. So
It's
if I wanted to
fun.
just modify some code, I modify the homepage. I'm going to click save, and we are live. Like that app just instantly recompiled, redeployed, and it's live on the internet. So
So it
uh,
also gives you a URL where this is live deployed, right? So you
yes.
potentially can also use it to build your, I don't know,
Um,
application and deploy it live.
turns out I have. Well, I have a bug to resolve in this. I'll resolve that after the live stream. Anyways, that's Valtown. We put a Honc app on there, and so if you ever want to play with Honc in like seconds, then this is the place to start. Now, without further ado, we can get to infinite screen.
Wow.
Um, we can get to what we really wanted to talk about today, which is Cloudflare's new. Okay, there's a lot of stuff. That's why I'm wearing a lot of hats. First thing first is kind of the motivation behind today. I should go back to my browser. Infinite screen. Look out. Woo!
Oof.
Cloudflare Agents SDK. I should have had this ready. Apologize.
I mean,
Cloudflare.
I think finally we want to talk about AI agents, right? Because we haven't done this in the stream, and I feel everyone is
Yes.
talking about AI agents, but Cloudflare released
Yes.
their own Agents SDK.
They
So we
did.
decided, or you decided, to build with the Agents SDK on top of Honk, and I'm super excited already to see it.
Okay, so here's the thing. Just a little preamble. Agents is being used a lot, and there's a lot of hype. But there also are very specific use cases where they're extremely useful. And the tooling is very like nascent around how to like create an agent. What is an agent? So this SDK is very early stages, but you can do some pretty neat stuff with it. And it's built on, like, it's meant to deploy on Cloudflare. It uses what are called durable objects, which is something that can be a little tricky to wrap your head around, but luckily the SDK does a lot of that heavy lifting for you. It adds in something called PartyKit to help manage WebSocket connections and like create your durable objects. So, well, I'll do a little code tour of how to like the plumbing you need in order to deploy an agent inside a Honc app. But the thing that really, I don't know if I got it here. The thing that spoke to me is that they have some Hono middleware. Do we have Hono here? No. They have some Hono middleware for just plopping in some agents to a Hono app. And we will see that in a bit. So anyways, they have a starter template for this, which you can see on the homepage for Cloudflare Agents. And when I cloned this starter kit, I noticed something pretty cool, which is that it was a worker that used Vite and Hono, and also had a full React front end in the mix. And it was all in the same repository. And that, to me, I hadn't seen that done very elegantly before, but it just worked to have your UI components next to your server code. And as soon as I launched the app, it worked, and I could start modifying UI and API routes and everything. So again, that's with this template. If you clone it, you'll kind of see the setup. But then I got inspired. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. I got inspired to kind of take that and put it into a Honc app. And so we have it, the PR is open, but I have a new example app that I'm working on for inside our Create Honc app repository that will showcase this kind of like full stack Honc setup.
That's super cool. Can you walk us through the things that you did in the Honc application? Like
Yes,
if you go to your code base, but okay, there is a but.
Okay, I wanted to show a little bit. I wanted to show the thing first, otherwise it gets it. You know, the code tour is a little harder to grok. So it's like a typical Hono worker, whatever. You just npm dev or npm dev. That does your Wrangler command. You get a URL locally, and your UI launches. And this is my Hono API that's serving this like highly interactive React UI, and we'll see that in a little bit. And okay, so the thing that I wanted to build was something that could give you a handover document for like an idea for a software project. So in this case, Nella, you gotta just give me kind of a top level idea for something you might want to build.
Like an application I want to build, any.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say I want to build. You caught me like now. I have to be creative, but okay. Let's build. Yeah, let's build. I don't know. We build a recommendation service. I'm building my vanilla app. Is any of that good for you?
Okay, vinyls.
Can you do a vinyl catalog for me that also gets information about tracks?
Okay. Build a vinyl catalog that enriches vinyl information with, oh god, hide this, extra information about tracks and recommends additional other related vinyls.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that's good. I think that I like that idea.
Okay, so this chat is happening with my Honc app, and what's going to do is it's going to ask me a bunch of follow-up questions about you know, who's my user, who's the, and it'll go into a little bit of the technical side as well. So I don't know how much back and forth there will be, so I'm going to try to nudge it to just just make, okay, just make a simple CRUD API spec for a mock API that has necessary routes to yeah, do operations on a vinyl collection.
Nice.
This
I like,
will
by the way,
kind
I
of,
like, by the way, that your chat is friendly. It already said that is sounds like a great project. And I'm really happy that it's not saying, oh, your project out here is not great.
Okay, so I got a follow-up question now of, what are the entities, artist, album, release year, stuff like that. All of those, you make the decision. Just give me a spec I can look at, then we tweak it. Okay. And if it wants another follow-up question, then I'm gonna get a little bit more caps lock.
Okay.
All right, this is a good sign. So I have not had a lot of time to work on the UI, but the fact it's taking so long to respond means that it's probably generating the spec. So we're gonna wait a couple seconds. We can talk about the weather. Oh, no, it came back.
Ooh.
All right, cool. So it looks like it created the specification, and then it gives the kind of overview down here. The fun thing is that this has actually saved it in a database. So if I click this right here, I see the specification, and I can copy it and then put it in my editor. So it goes through all of the data models, kind of describes them, and then this is something you could hand over to a developer, or you could hand over to your AI IDE to actually implement the code.
Nice.
So I thought that was pretty neat. And then we're okay on time. Okay, so what if all right, let's see here. Modify the spec to be in German instead, including all API routes. Okay.
I don't know if that's
The
a
other
good
thing.
idea, but
The reason I'm doing this is that, again, I didn't implement loading states, but so the agent under the hood is kind of aware of the fact that we've created this resource that is the spec. And so now it's like it has a tool available to it, which will be able to update create a new spec and then update the record in the database. And I really hope this works. Abrufen alle Vinylplatten. It looks like it's all in German. And if we go over here, the specification was updated
oh my God,
in
it
the database.
sounds so weird. Instead of body, it says Anfragekörper, and I don't know. I don't know. Like it's just odd.
So
I don't know
that's
if
the German phrase for like request body, right?
it's the thing for request body, but honestly, I've never seen in any company someone doing this, like saying Anfrage. No, I don't think the word exists. I feel everyone would do it in English and German. I'm quite certain about it. It looks super. Like I mean, Antwort still okay, that's fine, but the Anfrage, no. Anfrage body,
All right.
Anfrage Körper, nope.
That is very funny. So it looks like that all went through. So we can take a tiny look at the code. Right. So the first thing you're going to notice, let's see if I can zoom in, is probably, don't save. Okay, the structure of the app, at least the way I did it, is relatively familiar, except instead of that like source/index.ts, we have two different really important files. One is server.ts, and this just looks like a Honc app. So it has pretty much all the stuff we normally do in Honc, like setting middleware to share the database client down here. The key difference is that we have this agents middleware, which is coming from the Cloudflare Agents SDK. Actually, where is that? There we go. It's imported from Hono Agents, actually. So that has a different package name. That handles all the routing to the agent, all the WebSocket connections, everything like that. The only like typical Honc API thing we've put in is an API for fetching that list of specs. And so that's when in the UI when I clicked that spec button and saw the list of the specs, this is the route that we were hitting. And it just does, a simple lookup in the database. So that's the typical honk stuff. The atypical stuff happens in this client.tsx. And this is where we're doing the kind of front end stuff. So the kind of dev server knows to treat this as an entry point for the front end. And then we can just write React code. So this is some React code to just mount the app. And then we do all of the front end stuff inside this app component right here, which is an app.tsx. So I'm not going to go too much into the front end code. Probably the only really important thing, oops, that's the agent, is there's a hook that you can use to connect to your agent. And that's called use agent chat in our case, because we have a chat interface. And that will give you access to the messages, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, this code is I've been just kind of hacking on this hour by hour throughout the week. So this is very messy at the present moment, but it's been pretty fun.
Would you
Okay.
say, Brett, just before you move to the agent, would you say that's your default way if you think about bringing in front end to a Hono application? Would that be your go-to way? I mean, it's a mean question, but
yeah, for something as complex as this, like a chat client, absolutely. Just because you're handling a lot of asynchronous data, you have to consider a lot of different states that the UI could be in at any point in time, and React does make that a little easier. Lots of front-end frameworks make that easier. I just know React. A couple of other things. Okay, for the front end, a couple of other important things. So we have this index.html, and this is the thing that points to that client file we looked at. And when we are running the dev server, we're running it with Vite. So maybe I'll go to the package.json. So instead of Wrangler dev, we have this Vite dev right here. And that's relying on Cloudflare's very new, where is it? Vite plugin. So we put that as a plugin in our Vite config, and then Vite is aware of the fact that, oh, hey, we're running in a worker environment, and it knows how to think about front end versus the API. So our colleague Oscar was working on a setup like this, and he had a really cool solution. He's gotten some props in our Discord, but this Cloudflare Vite plugin definitely simplifies a little bit of like the deployment and also dev story. And I think Oscar's was a bit more specific to like, well, yeah, we won't get to the details. Oscar had it solved a slightly different problem. Okay, that's the front end setup. We went to the typical honk setup. How are you feeling, Nella?
Yeah, I'm not a front-end person, and you know that. I think that's something I have to catch up on. But I think it looks like I understand what you changed to make that work. So that's good. I'm curious to see the agent, though.
All right, it is agent time. Okay, so this is why I'm wearing so many hats today. There's a lot of things going on. There are two important things to consider when you're adding the Agents SDK. The first was that middleware that. Oh, yeah.
Brett, you can remove the front end head because you talk now about agents. You want to remove one of the heads, right? So I wanted to keep I remember that you said that at the beginning. So now you are the agent. Now you are the agent, Brad.
All right. That's a good point. I'm only now wearing one hat because we're going to talk about one thing, kind of, which is, so you need to add the middleware that we saw in server.ts. So this is the agents middleware from Hono Agents. And again, that's going to deal with a lot of the routing you need to be able to send messages to your agent. The other thing is obviously you need to make an agent, which we will dig into in a second. And then very important, you need to export it. And you need to export this agent with the right name. And by the right name, I mean it's one that's in your wrangler.toml or wrangler.jsonc. And the reason for that is under the hood, an agent is a different thing than your worker. So Cloudflare needs to be aware of the fact that, like, okay, so an agent is really a durable object. We don't need to talk about what those are. But you need to tell your application when it deploys, I have this agent, which is a durable object. Its name is dialog agent in this case. And it turns out, our dialogue agent is saving some stuff in its own little database. And so we need to put this configuration right here to kind of also tell Cloudflare, hey, this agent is going to have its own database. And with that, everything should work. We just need to implement the agent itself,
I mean,
which is yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that because that sounds to me the hard work actually. But I mean, you can let me know how hard it was or how you feel about it.
Okay, so here's the thing. It wasn't easy for me at first, a little bit because uh, I just had to wrap my head around a lot of things. But in the last day, I would say some stuff is clicking. So like a couple of notes about the agent SDK. First, it's built on durable objects, which is this primitive that does have kind of a learning curve with Cloudflare. And the second is you can lean quite heavily on the Vercel AI SDK for actually making a lot of your calls to an LLM or something like that. And with that in mind, I ended up using OpenAI as the LLM that kind of drives the agent. And then I did a couple of tricky things that are probably not correct. So if you do look at this example, bear that in mind. This is by no means the right way of doing things. I did something where I could keep track of the ID of any specification that was made. So this is like I created a new database for the agent where it could just track a little bit of information about what was going on. And then the meat of this agent comes here in this on chat message. And this is a thing that streams responses back to the UI. I did kind of make it, I said earlier, like there's not really a loading state for when it's calling a tool. So that's something I need to figure out how to do better. And that's why we had that long wait time before we got the spec for your vinyl idea. But under the hood, this is just a chatty LLM agent that has two tools. First tool is generate implementation plan, and the second tool is update specification. So Nella, I remember you saying you weren't super familiar with like tool use in LLMs. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So, but does that mean basically it has the two choices? Either it asks you more questions to generate the implementation plan, and then if it thinks it has enough information, then it will update the specification, or at least if it update in the initial phase, I guess, means also build the application the first time. Is that how it
Yes.
works?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
Cool.
it's kind of like when you send a message uh, in the chat, it responds to that, and it can either call one of its tools or just send you some text.
Okay.
And what's happening? So like so when I was like, you make the decision, just give me a spec, okay? The first thing it did was it created the spec. And so that's why we have this little bubble right here, which is like, oh, I called my tool to create a spec.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, this is kind of its response after creating the spec. And the way that I saved things in the database, all right, we're okay on time. The way that I save things in the database here is that in this tool call, we kind of have this this callback right here, which is that once the LLM responds with this tool call, which is really just responding with data, right? It's responding with a title and a plan for the spec. I use our Drizzle client for D1, and then I insert that spec into kind of the global database for the Honc API. And that's how the Honc API is able to read that spec. So there's some other magic happening here, which is like, I do want to tell the agent, hey, you made a spec with this ID, so that I can kind of remember that. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably a better way to do that. But then that's the bit that enabled us to then update the specification, because the agent's then like aware of the fact I made this spec, it has an ID of blah. And so if I send it a message like, hey, could you do this in German? It would then take that existing spec, translate into German, and then update it in the database. And that's all happening in this tool call right here for update specification.
So that's the update specification. And just a quick question, if I got this right, the other tool that you included is generate, or I think
Yes.
is a generate implementation plan. And that's basically when it asks you for more information.
No, so these tools are, yeah, okay. I should call it create specification. I'm sorry, the names are bad. It's just I've been hopping on and off this project. So to reiterate, it has a choice when you send it a message whether to call a tool or not call a tool. And in
Yeah,
this
okay.
case, the system prompt here, so this is like the thing that we kind of prime the LLM to know its purpose. The system prompt is pretty explicit about wanting to ask the user one question at a time to develop a good spec for their idea. And by the way, a huge shout out to Harper Reed. I basically stole this system prompt from this blog post on their LLM code gen workflow, which is fantastic. It's a really, really good prompt for if you want to refine an idea for something. At any rate, yeah, this is the yep.
So basically, Brad, what you tell me, sorry, it's like the agent. Can I imagine it's like the handyman, and I decide which tools it has in its toolbox. So it has the ability maybe to fix something in the house if it has the right tools, for example, but it only can use and access the toolbox stuff, and then also, or well, it accesses the toolbox, or it asks you more questions until it can access the toolbox, or until it feels confident to access the toolbox.
Exactly. So imagine you told a handyman, like, replace the floor. Like, there's a lot of questions. It's like, how much of the floor? What kind of new floor do you want? How, like, do you have enough money to pay for this? So it's the tools are like for when we know we have a task to do, and especially for an LLM, it's like to interact with the outside world. So in this case, it's doing some stuff in a database.
But for example, if you would tell the LLM now to generate something else for you that it is not trained for, it would probably not be able because it doesn't have the tool in its box, or would it still come up with something because it's a chat agent?
So okay, if you told it, yeah, it depends. If you told it like look up the weather, it's not going to know how to do that. You would have to give it the tool to do that.
Okay, yeah, but that's but if I would ask something that it could generate from text, it probably might.
Yeah. So if you asked it,
for me, generate a poem.
So,
I don't know. Can this generate, like, if you ask it generate a poem, it would probably do it?
Oh, generate a poem, definitely. I mean, maybe.
Oh, take the German spec and make a poem out of it.
Yeah. I was thinking along the lines of like, so if you asked it to like write code for you, it totally would. Whoa!
Yeah, okay, but okay, I wouldn't expect it. So it's basically okay, but that makes sense. So if it can do it with only replying to you, it does it. But if it misses the tool, it would definitely not do it. Like look up the weather, because it would need to have access to an API to do that, or to more internals. Okay, cool.
And then something also to remember. Okay, so there's a lot of magic happening here, and this AI chat agent, like I said, it has its own database that's just unique to the agent. And it's not shown in this code, it's in the actual library code. It's creating a database of all of your history of chat messages. So in that case, it always has access to all the messages before it. But if I clear this, it'll remove the database. And also cool, I stumbled upon this. Okay, I know we're almost at 30 minutes, but I did really want to show this. In the repository, I created okay, so pnpm db agent studio. So we all know Drizzle Studio, hopefully. If not, it's like a local viewer for your database. So it turns out the agents database is also SQLite. And by pure luck, I connected, which we won't get into the details, I accidentally connected to this database with Drizzle Studio. And then I was like, oh, I can inspect all of the state that this agent is keeping. So in this
That's
case,
cool.
yeah, so this is the database table it has on the specifications. And in this case, I just have an ID so that it knows which one to update that it's talking about. So this is the ID of the vinyl spec.
Hmm.
But then we also have the entire history of all of our messages here, which they're going to look
Ooh,
really messy because it's all JSON. But you can see, okay, this is I want to build a vinyl catalog. Um, and
nice.
yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So I wrote that little PNPM script that you can connect to your agent's database and kind of inspect what's going on, because that was helpful for me for building some of the UI.
I'm not really curious how you found out accidentally about it, but it's cool that you did because I
We
think it's
are,
cool.
yeah, we're at 30 minutes, so I don't want to drag this on too much. But basically, like, okay, very quick synopsis is that in the so if you ever get a honk template, if you go to the drizzle config, drizzle config, so we have this get local D1 database, and actually, okay, I'll find another drizzle config. So in the D1 template, this is a lot of code, I know. What it does is it checks if we're in production or not, and if we're not in production, so we're working locally, it tries to get this local D1 database. And it does that by, and this was a lot of manual searching on my part, it does that by looking inside the Wrangler directory. So this is like a hidden directory that Wrangler uses for saving files and stuff like that. And then it just tries to find any file that ends in SQLite, and then it loads that as
Oh, and
your
so
primary.
there was basically one existing for the agent,
Yes.
and
So I'm
that's
going
how
to
you
update our,
discovered it.
yep. So I
Sorry
have to
if
update our
yeah, okay.
templates. Yeah, and also the logic behind this was that it looks for all SQLite files and then returns the most recently modified one. And then that's the database we connect to. And so for this spec generator agent thing, what I had to do is that basically if you tell it, hey, I want the agents database, it looks inside this path right here in order to find a SQLite database. Otherwise, it assumes you want to connect to the D1 database, and it looks in this path right here. I apologize to viewers if this is very obtuse, but hopefully it helps someone, because it helped me a lot when I was building with the agent.
No, so it's also kind of fun that you accidentally discovered it because of the script that existed already for the
Yeah.
local D1. It's really cool.
I'm also not sure how to stop sharing my screen. So if you want to do
I
that.
can I can remove your screen. So, Brad, I mean, that was cool. Thanks for wearing so many hats today.
So
I
many hats.
feel so many hats. I feel I have a better understanding of an agent with its toolbox. And yeah, I think next week you will be not here, but
Won't.
you won't be here, but I think we are going to talk about honk.dev, our homepage, and we are going to open source it. It's an announcement already. And we talk a little bit how we build it. And it uses a different front end. It uses a different front end thing and idea. So I have to dip again my feet into front end land. So if you enjoy front end with Hono, you might want to join.
Yeah,
I will be not
it was
doing. I will
inevitable,
not do.
Nella.
I will not doing it alone. So I will be joined by Oscar, our coworker here. So yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. To a quick teaser for next week is that what we saw today, which I kind of sloppily did, I'm sorry, is how to use Vite to just basically have kind of like a single page application that's in the same folder as your worker. What Oscar will show next week is Hono X, which is the term is a meta framework, and it has a lot more features for like only serving a portion of your app, and like rendering part of it on the server for various reasons that he can get into. So it's a different approach, but it has a lot more benefits depending on your domain. So it's another tool in the tool set.
New tools. I
Yeah.
say let's have it next week, and let's see
Yep.
you again in 2 weeks.
All right.
So that's the time for the outro jingle that we still don't have.
Oh,
So
da honk.